Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. Donald Trump has signed an executive order that will be a real game changer for radical non-governmental organizations in this country. This executive order is going to really expose a lot of the bad faith actors in our system, those that rely on federal funding in particular. Now, these radical NGOs have wreaked havoc on the United States in their public policy process for over a century. These trusts and foundations, no less run by one of the biggest philanthropists, so-called, out there, George Soros, and the circular schemes that they have put up to where they fleece American taxpayers out of tens, if not hundreds of $billions, and then they kick it back to the Democratic Party. Then the Democratic Party gets in office, and then they loot taxpayers some more. Then they give them to these supposed NGOs that rely on federal dollars, which doesn't make any sense. But before we get into this executive order and why it matters for George Soros, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Now, George Soros is just one of the most prominent billionaires that have used federal funds to get by for many, many years. These so-called charities that they have set up include the Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, set up by billionaires who want to use their money to engage in political manipulation in the United States. They do this under so-called nonprofit status in many cases. There are 501c3s, which are different than 501c4s, and we won't get into the nuances of this. But suffice to say, if an NGO, a non-governmental organization, is taking federal dollars, then they are beholden to taxpayers. So these so-called public-private partnerships, from a political analysis standpoint, skirt the line between democracy and corporatism, or an extreme interpretation of this is fascism. It's a type of fascism when the public and private interests are merged to manipulate the public policy process, to engage in social engineering, to push political agendas like the climate agenda, for example, which has obvious political ramifications. We're talking about trillions of dollars at stake, energy, transportation, housing. Everything comes under this umbrella, and so they smuggle in all of these radical agenda items into so seeming innocuous projects that on their surface level they seem good to people who are light-minded and just touchy-feely emotional types that lack critical thinking, and those who actually go get the facts, dig into them, see who the actors are behind the scenes, and see that they're motivated by greed, narcissism, megalomania, delusions of grandeur, like blocking out the sun, for example. Bill Gates, really? There are all sorts of nefarious projects going on. If you see it from the standpoint like myself that believes that the purpose of government is simply just to protect individuals and to enforce the laws, to maybe pave a few roads and offer some solutions to social problems on the margins, but in general have civil society where we voluntarily and freely cooperate with one another to accomplish our mutual objectives. And not everything is done through force and coercion, through so-called democracy, which in many cases is mob rule that can lead to a violation of rights and also fleecing of taxpayers. So George Soros has exploited loopholes in this public policy process for a long time. And I really do believe that we need a systemic overhaul of this NGO system. And this executive order by Donald Trump is a step in the right direction to getting transparency, to taking the lid off of this box of worms that the NGOs have become. Because every one of these NGOs that relies on federal funding, they're getting a full audit. That's right. Congratulations, you take federal dollars, then you're going to have to show us all of your books. And if it doesn't add up, you're going to have to pay the price. And my suspicion is there's a lot of fraud going on behind the scenes. People with huge salaries that don't earn them, DEI grifting, all sorts of questionable activities. and they bear scrutiny, and they should be under the microscope. It's a boon for investigative journalists like myself and some colleagues, and we really appreciate the Department of Justice finally taking the lid off the NGO racket, because honestly, it is one of the most malignant presences in our political system. It is obviously set up to act as a sort of slush fund for the Democratic Party, and it's just a vicious cycle. It's a positive feedback loop, and it's inherently unstable, and it has caused far too much damage in this country. We need to return to voluntary civic activism, not subsidized by taxpayers. I don't even agree with nonprofit status in most cases. I think that there are legitimate charities, but anything even borderline should not count. So unless you're treating sick children, or trying to find the cure for cancer, or you're a church, a legitimate church, then pay taxes. Okay, we should not be creating these trusts and foundations for billionaires to play puppet masters. They should need to be equal with us. And I mean, they already have huge advantage in terms of their money that they can use in our campaign finance system, and that's another matter, and that needs to be severely reformed, in my opinion. I mean, we're in the digital age. We can reform this stuff, take money out of it to a great degree, and really limit it. I don't think... I mean, this is controversial, and you might have a different opinion. I respect that. There's certainly a point of view that money is speech. I'm not on that same wavelength. I think speech is speech, and I think that candidates should be vetted and should not be able to just have huge advantage by spending money that just can flood the airwaves, and it's gotten to be a real mess, in my opinion. And I think that we need some kind of campaign finance reform, but NGO reform, also huge. And the Trump administration is taking action. So let's hope this America First agenda further gets institutionalized. We see Thune is going to do like the nuclear football thing, and is going to, mass approve of lower level executive officials coming up. That seems to be in the works. So we'll keep an eye on that, and that will help to further lay the foundation of getting real civil servants back in the U.S. government, not partisan hacks who want to weaponize the government for their radical activism and punish Americans who don't agree with them, because that's what we oppose. We don't support censoring our opposition. We want to hear all of their stupid ideas. So yeah, bring it on, and we will argue with you, and that's how the democratic process actually works. So we want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts with us at Explain America. Exercise your constitutional rights. We always welcome that. And thank you for watching.